Hello and welcome back to I guess this is the fifth webinar in a series called the 5-week Body Language Mastery course. My name is Joshua Pellissier. Sorry if I'm a little bit late here, but I just got a really funny question from one of the attendees, Nick, who said he had a GILF, not a MILF, but a GILF, borderline GILF attack him in a bar the other day. We'll have to hear that later, Nick, if you're interested in sharing that story. I know you're at work, so maybe you'll have to just type it to me and I'll have to translate. Yeah, welcome to today's webinar. I'm very excited to teach it to you. It's the fifth in a series of 5-week Body Language Mastery course trainings. And over the past 5 weeks, we've gone over a different sort of topic, and general topic, that we've really dove into a lot, and it's been a whole lot of information. I hope you guys have gained a lot from it so far. Today is going to be about a really amazing topic, so I'll kind of jump into it right now. We have a lot to cover, so might as well hop into it. The 5 pillars of sex appeal, what we're covering. Covering eye contact was the first one. Then we went into touch. Then we went straight into negative body language, which was one of my favorites, and probably if I had to put these in order of which one you should learn first and which ones will give you the highest amount of success the fastest, it would be negative body language. And understanding that's sort of the keys to the kingdom there. Then we went over psychological space last time, which was really advanced and for a lot of people, and definitely some of the most advanced material that I teach. But I sort of snuck it in there, so I didn't really go into any really technical versions of anything. But we got pretty advanced. And then today we're going to go over dominant body language. It's a really great topic. And I did get a lot of participation on this webinar series, and I'm very happy about it, and lots of comments, lots of questions, lots of guys attending. And so it's really great. And next week I am going to have a mystery topic that I'm going to go over, and I will do it. So next week you will see a note from me saying it's a bonus week, and I'm not going to tell you what it is. You're going to show up and you're going to find out. It's the sort of, like I said, the sixth pillar, the missing pillar of the 5 pillars of sex appeal. Probably the most important pillar for seduction. So if you're interested in that at all, then this is probably pretty crucial. But today, again, we're going to go over dominant body language. I'm going to go over this in a lot of different ways. The sort of important thing for you to know about this webinar is that I'm going to be illustrating some things, and some of them are motion generated, and I can't show you how to do it over the webinar. But most of the material that you're going to learn in here, you can practice, and I'll tell you how to practice it sort of in your house if you want to, or when you're walking down the street or whatever. And so you can start to practice it and sort of get a good feel for it. And I'll try to explain it as good as possible, so that you have a really good understanding. But if you have any questions at all, which I have a feeling that this webinar is going to get the most questions out of all of them, then let me know. Dominant body language is probably one of the most misunderstood concepts when it comes to body language in general, and it's not only is it misunderstood by a lot of people, it's also one of the most, I guess, overcompensated topics and overcompensated areas of study of body language. And it's because people who are really afraid of being submissive, or people who have been sort of walked all over in the past, sort of have this overcompensation of dominant body language, thinking that if you're either going to be bullied or you're going to be the bully, basically, is how people think. And so they overcompensate by being too dominant. And when you become too dominant, it shows that you're insecure, and then it reveals that you're not confident, which totally reverses the effects that you want to have from showing dominant body language in the first place. So I'll sort of go into it now. So dominant body language shows your level of power and leadership within the interaction. This is a crucial sentence. If you guys need to take notes, I feel free to go ahead and do that. But you might want to write this down. Dominant body language shows your level of power and leadership. Now, what I mean by this is I mean that when people see your level of dominant or submissive body language, and they see this subconsciously, of course, they're gauging how powerful or how much of a leader you're going to be. And really what I mean by power and leadership is really what you're doing, if you want to get technical about it, is we are gauging someone's relative desire to or relative likelihood of fight or flight. Meaning, is this person more likely to fight or more likely to run away in a certain scenario. And so what we're doing is we're projecting this to people all the time. One group of people that are really amazing at reading dominant and submissive body language and take very good advantage of this are muggers, basically. People who attack people in the streets and steal their money. Thieves. The reason why is because they have to pick really weak targets. And if you're using submissive body language, I saw a special once, and I've read lots of stories and this sort of thing, but it's really cool to see an actual special on TV of an interview one time of a guy who was a mugger, and they said that people were walking out of the grocery store, and the mugger was sitting there talking about who they would mug, and they were saying why. And the thing that all the people that they would mug had in common is they all had a few of the traits that I'm going to tell you about today that sort of showed this person that they were weak. And of course, the mugger didn't really know why. They thought that it was that they were weak or that they would be an easy person to mug. They just had a feeling and they just went with it. Because of course, as you've been learning through this process, body language is a subconscious trait. We learn it subconsciously and we read it subconsciously. We learn it through mimicking, typically, and we read it because we learn through mimicking, and it's learned so early in life, it lives in our subconscious minds. So it speaks directly to our emotions. So this guy just gets a feeling that he can mug this person, and then, he's usually pretty right. This is what people call intuition, though it's actually not intuition, but it's what people call intuition. So I'm going to teach you today that, so in effect, I guess what I'm trying to say is that this webinar will keep you from getting mugged. That's not really true, but I know we got some lawyers in the audience here, so disclaimer. But it will show and present to other people that you are going to fight in the face of adversity instead of run away, and women find that extremely, extremely attractive, and that's something that I think you will be able to take advantage of. And Michael, just to kind of get that out there, says lawyers, muggers, same difference. You can say that because you're a lawyer. That's the only reason why you can say that. So anyway, so let's go ahead and go straight back into this. I don't want to spend too much time on this sentence. So your level of control and power is directly related to your desire to play the quote-unquote male gender role. And what I mean by the male gender role I'm going to go into in a moment, but I want to speak into what I mean by this. Typically, and I'll get into this again, like I said, I'll get into this in much greater detail in a bit, but typically we associate the different male gender role and the female gender role with different sort of dominance and submission. Male gender role being the dominant role, female gender role being the submissive role. And however that's changed and morphed over time, the sort of visceral response that we have to these different sort of submissive and dominant traits is still there. And one thing I didn't get to add to this webinar that after I was finished, I was like, I should have added that to it, so I'll go ahead and talk about it now, is that we actually have 3 different parts of our brain. And over time, these different parts of our brain have been developed and added on. Now, of course, that wasn't like, we didn't have this and then as we grow, we get more parts. And it isn't like, since the early days of humans, we've had these only one brain, then we grew 2 more on the outside of it. It was more like we actually have the 3 brains. We have a human brain, a mammalian brain, and a reptilian brain. And these 3 different brains act or sort of control the 3 different sort of thought processes that we have. And sex lives in our deepest brain, and that's our reptilian brain. Our mammalian brain has a lot more emotional empathy, and then the and nurturing, and then the sort of human brain processes complex theories and concepts. And so what we do is, since our reptilian brain holds our sort of sex drive, it's still we're still associating sex and a lot of the things that we like about sex and that we find sexy in women and that women find sexy in men. We're associating those things on a reptilian level, which means they're still very much like that guy's get strong and that girl's got big breasts and therefore she's hot, and that's kind of how it is. She's got big eyes, big breasts, childbearing hips. Maybe that's a little less attractive than it used to be. But these different gender roles are associated with that, and the submission part of that is very directly related to this sort of reptilian idea that we can control as men. And over time, we've sort of weaned ourselves away from this, but the reptilian desire from a woman to a man to be dominant is still there. So a lot of women feel like they don't have a lot of choices because not a lot of women are dominant, not a lot of men are dominant. anymore. And a lot of men are submissive. And so I want to fix that now because I want to sort of debunk what a dominant man it really is and show you how to really show that quality. And when I started using this sort of area of my life and getting dominant body language sort of in control, I had a whole new group of women that were attracted to me. And these were the women that were always done up, always sort of hooking up with the, if I'm not sure if you've ever seen this website before, but this website called hotchickswithdouchebags.com, I think. And pretty funny website, but basically it's like mind blowing how these really hot girls are dating these or hooking up with these really ugly, terrible, orange painted douchebag guys. And so the problem with that, the reason why that is because these guys are sort of internally framed and they are dominant, even though they're idiots. Okay, so we got some people thinking that site is great. I can only see so much of that website, then I start to want to, freaking shoot myself. But let's go a little bit into gender roles first. So that's sort of the first thing we're going to cover here. And I want to go over what the traditional gender roles were and what the new gender roles are, and sort of break some myths, and sort of bust some myths about gender roles and what it means to be playing the male gender role. So the traditional gender roles for men and women, the male gender role was that of a provider or physical provider. So that would mean that I physically go get food. I would go gather nuts and berries. I would find animals and hunt them and kill them and bring them back. This was the physical provider. And then the physical protector was somebody who was big and strong, someone stronger than the rest of the people around him, so that they could, or knew how to fight better, so that they could protect anybody who was in the tribe or in the group. And that was sort of how it was for a very, very, very long period of time for us. And this is sort of the mammalian idea of a gender role. You have someone who is a provider and protector, someone who is the other role. And so the female gender role traditionally was that of the nurturer, physical nurturer. And that means rearing children, raising children, feeding the family, things like that. Now, if you think about this is really bled into a lot of our current day and modern day concepts of attraction. But it's not the same anymore. Something's changed. There are men who are weak and frail, to be quite honest, and they are, doing better with women than guys who are big and muscular and strong. There are guys who are broke and have nothing and can't provide anything, and they're doing better than guys who are rich and powerful and whatnot. So the question is, what the hell's going on here? I mean, how come all of a sudden we have this flip-flop from the traditional gender roles into what we have now, into a new gender role, a series of gender roles? And that thing that switched it over to the new gender roles was society. So the new gender roles are now based on social rules, and not so much based on physical rules anymore. Because whenever we added this sort of outer layer of our brains, we added a new role and level of role playing to our society and to the different genders. And instead of it being all physically based, which was the mammalian part of everything, and to be honest, the reptilian part too. Now we have almost pure social associations with our gender roles. So the male gender role now, the new male gender role, is that of a social provider. And a social provider is somebody who doesn't necessarily need to be the person who knows how to go out and bring everything, and doesn't need to have a lot of money, or doesn't need to be able to go out and hunt and whatever. But instead, because they are high on the social ladder, they get things done for them. So this is sort of the new game, and that's one of the reasons why I've sort of been able to crack this code of of getting lots of sort of value for my gender role, and sort of playing a really dominant role, in my groups and in general in society, is because I've been able to harness the power of social providing, and also the following, which is social protecting. So now the male gender role is social provider and social protector, because we have social rules that have changed the game. It's not survival of the fittest anymore. If you took I think I talk about this in the Tao of Badass, but if you take, a guy who is an executive CEO, who's frail, who is weak, old, overweight, slow, hard, poor eyesight, and you took a young, strong intern, who's, just tattooed up and rough and young, but, 28, 25, and just at the peak of their performance, and you put them in the same room, who's more likely to survive in that room? Well, I guess the real question is, it depends on the context of the room, doesn't it? I mean, it depends. If it's a cage match, I think that's pretty clear. The younger guy's probably going to win. If it is just a boardroom and the intern walks in, the intern has more to lose. So if they, hit the CEO, they're going to be tackled immediately. They'll be carted out, and then they'll probably go to jail, be tried, or get some massive fine and be sued. And the problem here is it takes away that intern's ability to provide and protect in society. So now they are lower on the food chain, and they're less attractive and less dominant. So the ideas of dominance have changed drastically over the years, and that's sort of what I wanted to reframe here. The female gender role too has a new role, a new sort of face, and that face is the emotional nurturer. So the emotional nurturer, the empathizer, is another way of putting that. So women, the sort of new job, a new role for women now, instead of being solely focused on raising children, which it's not that way anymore. There are a lot of single dads, there are a lot of stay-at-home dads as well, and it's perfectly acceptable within our society for a father to raise the children, and it's perfectly acceptable in our society for a woman to earn the money and to provide and protect for the family. But besides the traditional gender roles, the emotional nurturer is typically going to be the female. So women are still very associated with this empathizer, emotional nurturer. And what an emotional nurturer will do is they will it's their job to draw out the emotions and sort of make you feel as a man, just in general, make you feel something, make you feel safe to emote as a man. And that job of the female, sort of the new female gender role, is what our new sort of the new society sort of push on to women now. I just got a question, by the way, that asked if we had if this was going to be available for download later because they had a bad internet connection, and the answer is yes. You can. It'll be replayed, and you'll be able to watch it anytime you want. So if you do have to run out or something, that's no big deal. But you can't ask questions later if you have a problem. So try to stick in it now and try to stay with it so you can ask me some specific questions and get some more personal coaching with it. Okay, so let's go back. All right, so we are all attracted to someone who is playing the opposite gender role to us. So that's a really important concept. Women are attracted to men who are playing the opposing gender role, and men are attracted to women who are playing the opposing gender role. But the funny and more important thing is that we attract people who are playing the opposing gender role that we're playing at that moment. And because we have the choice to play whichever gender role we want now in society, like if you decided today that you wanted to be an emotional nurturer, you could do that. You would totally survive in society. You would probably thrive just like normal. And but the difference is you'd be attracting women who would be social providers and social protectors, and that's it can be a problem. Let's get out of here. So that can be a huge issue, and a lot of women actually have this problem too. Women will start to play the male gender role in society because they're trying to fight with or sort of keep up with the guys in their work environment. And so this has sort of been a massive shift for women. They've gone from being sort of stay-at-home moms and more submissive to accidentally becoming more dominant and playing the male gender role, the social provider and social protector. And I'm not saying that women don't want to do that. Some women do want to do that. Michael was saying this is feminism, and really it's what feminism has become. The traditional idea of feminism really sort of sprung from the women's equal rights movement. And the women's equal rights movement was saying equality for women, which is completely great, but women didn't want to be the same. They wanted to be equal, and that was the problem. And so a lot of guys sort of had this massive reaction to this, and I don't blame them really, because they're basically saying, hey, look, we want to be equal to guys, and the guys looked at that like saying, well, now I'm gonna have to fight you for everything. I'm gonna have to be submissive, and I don't want to be submissive. I want to play the sort of dominant role. And because women didn't know the difference then, and men didn't know the difference then, we had this massive fight, and feminism was sort of spawned because of that. And I believe that it was a necessary evil, because the problem was that we were making a massive shift in our society, and we had to sort of move from one outcome to another. And when you do that, there's always a lot of confusion. So now women are starting to wake up And after years and years and years, we're talking 30 years, maybe 40 years of this fighting for equal rights. They've got equal rights, in most societies, definitely not all societies, but they've got, roughly they've got equal rights in a lot of sort of European and American type societies. And the difference now is that they're sort of slowing down and looking around, and they're not fighting for it anymore. And they're like, hey, I don't really want this. They want equal rights, but they don't really want to be the dominant person in the relationship. And now we have things like online dating that have sort of spawned out of this, because women are saying, look, I'm just putting myself out there because all these guys are such wimps. I just want somebody who's got a set of balls here. So what we do, and what women are doing here, is they're playing the male gender role on accident. And they're attracting weak men because you attract the opposite gender role. And men who are afraid to sort of be dominant and take control and be powerful in an interaction with a woman and in society, sort of penetrate the world, as my friend would say. My friend Adam Gilad says that. And the way you penetrate the world is the way you penetrate your woman. And so, the idea is that if you're playing this dominant gender role, then you're going to be attracting these submissive women. And you're also going to be attracting women who want to be submissive, who've been playing sort of a game and being dominant because they thought they had to be. So the majority of women want to be submissive and want to be able to play the submissive gender role, but they do not trust most men to be able to do it. So you have to sort of prove to yourself that you can do it, prove to them that you can do it. And that's what today's all about, really. Most women, like I said, want to play the empathizing gender role, and so the sooner you can show that you're playing the male gender role, the better. And what I'm going to do today is I'm going to go over a few ways that you can show dominance, or AKA the male gender role, through moving your body, through your body language, of course, through dominant body language, at a distance. So before you even meet her, and the things that you do and the way that you think will sort of align your body so that you are constantly playing this male gender role as a default. And I'm going to warn you, though, whenever I first started studying this, it became a massive obsession for me. I started looking at everything like everyone was trying to be more dominant than I was, sort of alpha, in a sense. I started questioning whether or not my friends were suggesting things to get me to comply, or if it was like, they were really looking out for me. So I started questioning everything, basically. And I suspect you're probably going to do something similar to that. I'm not going to say you're going to do the same thing, but it's likely that you're going to see some sort of some pendulum swing where you're hyper aware. Sort of the true definition of self-conscious, right? Aware of yourself, conscious of yourself. And so if you start to experience that, just know that it's temporary, and you'll swing back to sort of this middle ground eventually. But you're going to have to go through that extreme space first. The question is, why are very attractive women all looking for dominant men? And this is something I want to really hit on here, because it is a question that I feel like I don't cover enough. And I've only talked to in most of my one-on-one coaching, which is rare because it's expensive. But during that time, I have enough time usually to cover topics like this that are really in-depth and really focused. So I'm really excited to be able to talk about this right now. So why are very attractive women all looking for dominant men? And the reason why is because very hot women use gender role tests on men. And the reason why they do that is because these tests will filter out men that aren't confident, that aren't going to be dominant. Because so many men want these women because they're very, very attractive. They have to start to filter out these men to figure out which ones are truly confident. And at the end of the day, they're going to want a man who can make them feel like they're allowed to be submissive. So they give these sort of gender role tests to all the men that they meet, where they try to lead and try to be powerful and try to run the interaction and try to be sort of the dominant one in the interaction. And if the men flip over to the submissive role, then they failed the test. So it's really, really important and crucial. And this can happen, I'm talking 4 or 5 weeks into hanging out with a girl. You're not dating her exclusively or anything yet, but, let's say you've been hanging out with her for 4 or 5 weeks, and all of a sudden, she starts being really, bossy, whatever, and you just go, oh, hey, do whatever you want to. I'm totally cool with that. If you want to go over here, we can do that. That's fine. Hey, just we'll do whatever. Just be cool. If you start to take a back seat in the interaction, in the relationship, then you fail that test. And most hot women, very, very attractive women, will leave you right after that happens. So dominant men commonly pass these tests naturally because when they get pushed a little bit by women, they don't budge, and that's really important. Now, again, this is for dominant body language. This is not for any other type of body language. This is only for dominance and submission. When it comes to other things like positive and negative body language, that's totally different. If women are pushing you to give you more, they want to have more of your positive body language, then and you don't give them more positive body language, you're basically telling them to go fuck off. Excuse my French here, but it's just a really bad thing to do, to mix up dominant and submissive, or dominant and positive and negative body language, because these are two completely different things. Women are looking to dominant men to see if they are able to lead the interaction, able to sort of play that male gender role. They're looking toward men who give them negative body language to show that they have a lot of options. So you need to be able to show both these things, and you can actually show both of them just through your body language without saying anything. And that's usually what guys do. If you've ever met a guy who's really, really good with women, just naturally very good with women, usually it's because he's got dominant body language as his default trait, and he doesn't give positive body language for no reason. So these are his two really common traits, and these are two things that you want to definitely mimic and sort of make part of your repertoire, make part of your habit and how you act. So very attractive women are looking for men who use dominant body language, is sort of my point from all this and sort of the bottom line on this statement. So I'm going to go over a vector diagram of the different halves of your body. A lot of guys do not know this, and a lot of people do not know this in general, but the top half of your body, to people subconsciously, sort of represents your power, your control, your leadership. And the bottom half of your body represents your sexuality, your sexual prowess, and your sexual confidence. So what you're going to do is you're going to be using, I'm going to be breaking these down into a couple of these different areas, the upper half and the lower half, and you're going to want to understand and remember that when you're trying to send off sexual signals, most of those sexual signals are going to be through your bottom half of your body, your hips and your legs and your feet. And most of the power and control parts of your body are going to be from the waist up, shoulders, back, stomach, head, chest, things like this. It's all very power driven. And so whenever we are going through this process, just keep in mind that you're going to be using these different halves of your body for different purposes, and you're going to be using them in conjunction with each other to be able to send off a very specific message. For example, if you have a very weak upper body and a very powerful lower body, people will think that you're gay because you've got a submissive upper body and you've got a dominant lower body. If you have a very submissive lower body and a very powerful and dominant upper body, people are going to think that you have a small dick because you're taking up very little space with your body, and you're trying to get out people's way, but you're big and really, really strong on the top to sort of overcompensate for it, so people look out for you. So you want to make sure that both of your upper body and lower body sort of match in message, and that they both sort of say power and they both say dominance. So that, and again, I want to point out the difference between dominance and being dominant and being domineering for a moment. Dominance is showing that you have leadership and power and control, and domineering is demanding that someone gives you control. So asking for control from someone else and sort of demanding that thing. You don't want to demand control from someone. You want to command control. Is the best way to put it. You want to have people want to give up control because you seem like a really powerful leader. So the three things we're going to cover today are shoulders, head, and legs. And we're going to cover these three different areas of your body in a few different scenarios so that you know exactly how to use, how to have your shoulders sit, how to have your head sit, and how to have your legs sit, because these are probably the three top components to dominant body language. There are other areas too, but the shoulders, head, and legs are probably the three biggest ones. So definitely check those out. We're going to be going over those today, so I'll be hitting on those sort of one at a time here in a bit. Each one shows a different level of fear or of confidence. So women and men are both actually looking to your shoulders, your head, and your legs to determine your level of fear and confidence around a subject or situation that you're in. And what your goal is, or your sort of mission here, is to show this dominant and confident body language and lack of fear in every situation that you possibly can, unless you're trying to show that you're afraid for whatever reason. Usually I think that If I were to try to show that I'm afraid of someone, it's usually to get in for something like to play to someone's weakness or something, and say someone's kind of being a huge dickhead, and I want them to sort of dig a hole for themselves. Then I can feign fear and feign that with my body language. And so what'll happen is they'll start to sort of overstep their boundaries, and then I can step up and do what I need to do, and they sort of blow themselves out. But that's more complex than I want to get into right now. So I'm going to go over the submissive body language model. First, the weak or submissive upper body, so from your waist up, reveals the fear of confrontation. If you have, and I'll go into what a weak and submissive upper body looks like, but if you have a sort of weak or submissive upper body, it shows that you're afraid of confrontation. This is probably the number one way that people can tell whether or not you're a target for some sort of physical bullying or something like that. If you feign power or feign like a powerful upper body, people will test you sometimes to see whether or not you really are confident and dominant. And it's your job to pass those tests. There are a few different ways of doing that. I can get into that a little bit later on. If you guys have any questions, just write them down. I'll go into ways to do that. So that's one. And then a weak or submissive lower body reveals a fear of ridicule. So not wanting to sort of be in anyone's way, always wanting to please everybody. So this one's people pleasing if you have a weak lower body, and then it is fear of confrontation. On the top, sort of the upper part of your body. And keep that in mind, because if you think about it now and you think about looking at somebody that has a really weak upper body, and I'll go into what that means in a bit, then you notice that they seem like they can be easily picked on. Maybe you feel bad for them because you were picked on when you were younger. Maybe the natural tendency is to actually be meaner to them or to sort of look down on that. I don't know, whatever your natural reaction is, that's the natural reaction you would have. But you're having that reaction because this person has a weak upper body, and it seems like they're afraid of confrontation, so they're less likely to sort of lash out at you. And again, if you look at someone who's got a weak lower body, then it sort of reveals that they're afraid of being made fun of. They need to please everybody. And so we're going to get into how to show a powerful upper body. So again, a powerful or dominant upper body reveals a lack of fear of confrontation. So sort of I wouldn't say that they're looking for confrontation, but it would show people that you're not afraid of confrontation, essentially, that you're okay with it, and that it's a sort of natural process of your life. Sometimes you have to confront people, and sometimes you have to sort of talk to them and get things out. And then a powerful or dominant lower body reveals a lack of fear of ridicule. So sort of, I don't really care about anybody else, and I don't really care what they think. Now, a lack of fear around confrontation and around ridicule is what makes up confidence in a man. And a man who has good dominant body language is considered to look and feel confident to women. And of course, confidence is the number one attribute and quality that women look for in attractive men. They say that confidence is one of the most important things. Confidence and a good sense of humor usually are the different components. So let's look at shoulders. As a general rule, you want to keep your shoulders back and down. And what I mean by back is like if you sort of pushed your shoulder blades together, sort of doing this right now. If you're sitting in your seat, sitting down listening to this and watching this webinar, if you keep your shoulders sort of back and down, it may feel a little bit weird, but you're not going to be poking your chest up. So there's two different ways of doing this. One is to actually lift your chest when you do it, and the other is to relax your chest and pull your shoulders all the way down and then slightly back. It should feel kind of like you have really great posture, really. That's what it should feel like how someone probably tries to make you sit all the time. Your lower back should be flat, and your upper back should be pretty much flat as well. So you want to keep your shoulders back and down. This is the new default for your shoulders. If you notice that your shoulders are scrunched up or starting to slide up on your neck, then drop them back down again. The reason why you pull your shoulders up is the same reason why any submissive person does pretty much anything with their body, and that is to protect themselves. Because this is an upper body trait, your shoulders, since this is an upper body trait right now, and because your upper body is sort of showing whether or not you have a fear of not ridicule. Sorry, I gotta go back over here, just refresh my memory. Confrontation. Fear of confrontation. Since you're trying to avoid confrontation, if you're weaker and you have submissive body language, what you're going to do is you're going to put your shoulders up to protect your neck. And you don't realize that's what you're doing, but that is what you're doing. You're sort of letting your shoulders rise up every once in a while until you get to the point of like almost a I don't know, shrugging your shoulders kind of position. And that is sort of leaves you less open to attack. Now, the irony behind this is that dominant men are less afraid of attack because they don't get attacked very often. And so if you show people that you're afraid of attack, it means that you get attacked often, which means you're probably weak, which means you're going to get attacked more. So sort of the catch-22 here is that if you act like you are dominant, you actually are dominant. That's how it works. People treat you differently. So keep your shoulders back and down. And this is a new default. Write this down. And the next three things I'm going to go over now is shoulders, this one shoulders, then head, then feet. I want you to write down exactly what to do with each part of your body because it's going to reveal this sort of dominant quality for you toward women. So again, keeping your shoulders back and down is very crucial. If you shrug your shoulders up in any kind of way, then it's showing submission. And you're doing it subconsciously because you want to protect your neck. You want to leave your neck exposed to attack. Yes, it is a place where you could get hit. Yes, you could get cut. Yes, you could die. You know, that's how it is. Just leave your shoulders down. You're not in any kind of fear of being attacked, I promise. Or maybe you are, but even if you are, having your shoulders up is just going to have people want to attack you more. It's going to entice people to come and attack you. So keep your shoulders down and back whenever you're doing anything, really. And I'll go over that more in detail in a bit when I talk about the different elements of different ways you would use this stuff. And then as far as your head, the main component here is to keep your chin up. You want to keep your chin up and right on here at sort of level with the ground. So if you could think about it being equal to the level of ground so that, you know, if it's parallel to the ground, that's about how you want it to be. And you want your eyes to be at level as well, at eye level, looking at everyone in the eyes. This actual image here, as you can see, you can probably tell a little bit, it looks as if he's looking up a little bit and his chin's tilted down just a little bit. So he's sort of showing more of a submissive role in this image, but it's very, very, very subtle, and you can barely notice it. But I just wanted to point that out so you can see it. But that subtle, tiny little subtlety is enough to tip people off. So it's very crucial that you, that you sort of keep this in mind, that it's even that subtle that you can tell, and people can tell that subtly that that you have some kind of an issue around your confrontation. So again, another reason why you drop your chin whenever people walk around or are sitting and talking, whatever. Having your chin sort of down as a default is a fear of confrontation, a fear of getting attacked on your neck. It's another neck protection mechanism. And we also have these same sort of protection mechanisms for our stomach, especially our diaphragm area. And any place that we have an injury, we have sort of a protection mechanism as well. And this is sort of what we use to help keep us feeling safe because we've been attacked in the past and we think that that's going to happen again. So what I'm asking you to do now, though, is to actually, break away from that and sort of rewire, I guess, is what I want you to do. This sort of hardwiring that says that you need to be submissive, you need to be sort of taking a back seat. You need to keep your chin up. And that's why people say keep your chin up, sort of keep your head up, keep your confidence, because whenever you start to get sad, you want to protect your neck so you don't get hurt more. Everyone that does this is totally subconscious, and we don't even know we're doing it. So you want to make sure that you keep your chin up and keep your eyes off the ground. Another thing that happens whenever your eyes are on the ground, of course, as you know through the eye contact, the first webinar we did, which is all about eye contact, is that whenever you look down, you access your emotional brain. And if you're accessing your emotional brain, you're susceptible to emotional responses, and that's not good for you. So instead, you want to make sure you keep your chin up and keep your eyes off the ground so you can stay a little more logical and in control. And then finally, you want to look at your stance. Your stance will show your fear of losing stability when you're walking. So if you have really close, if your feet are really close together, then it will show that you're well, actually, that's the second part of this. Sorry. If you're walking and you're walking with really short steps, it's sort of showing that you're afraid you're going to fall over and sort of be made fun of. Again, this is a fear of ridicule. And then the other is that it can show your fear of taking up space when you're standing. So if your feet are too close together, or if you take small steps whenever you're walking, smaller steps than you need to, and I'll go into what that means in a bit, then you're basically being afraid to take up space that you're in because you don't want people to notice you. You don't want to get in people's way, and you're afraid of falling down and having people laugh at you because you don't want to take big steps and miss a step and fall over. So again, lower body is all based around ridicule. You are afraid of being ridiculed, and so you are taking smaller steps, and you are standing with taking up less space. And you want to make sure that you have both of these things sort of corrected, because people will ridicule you more whenever you are afraid of ridicule. That's just kind of how it is. I know it sounds kind of mean, but when people see that, you're more of a subject for ridicule if you are taking smaller steps and you're standing close together. This is a weak and submissive body language trait, and you need to rewire that. You also don't want to, of course, take up too much space, which I'll get into in a bit. So I'm going to go over the three sort of, I don't know what these are, the trifecta of dominant body language. Sitting, standing, and walking. These are pretty straightforward. I can also go into eye contact later. If you guys do want me to talk about that, I can do that. There's a way to have dominant eye contact, but I really have to went over a lot of that in the eye contact section. And it's pretty much straightforward, but I'll go into it anyway. So I'm going to go into each one of these three different elements, and I'm going to continue from there. But I'm going to basically tell you how to do each one of these so that you come across as dominant to women and powerful to women instead of coming across as submissive and weak and sort of slimy and weird and creepy, which is all associated with submissive and weak. So let's go straight into walking first. Now, walking is usually the first thing that women will notice about you. It's the most obvious and most interpreted form of body language. And the reason why is because it involves two things. One, it involves distance, meaning that someone's far enough away from you to be able to walk. They're not right up in your business. And the other is that it involves motion. And motion catches our periphery, and our peripheral vision accepts motion more than it accepts sort of detail. So if you sort of stand here and you sort of notice your periphery of what's around the screen, and you stop focusing on the screen, you'll notice that if something's moving in your periphery, that it's easy to see, but you can't see the detail. And if something moves in the corner of your eye, and that's why it's called the corner of your eye, because it's in your peripheral, you sort of turn and look over there in that direction. Now, what you want to do is you want to show, and again, because it's your peripheral and it's all happening through your vision and it's at a distance, you're processing all this stuff from your subconscious mind. And I guess a couple of weeks ago, maybe a week ago, I got this bum attacked me and my girlfriend at the ATM. I'm not sure if I talked about this last time or not, but basically attacked us at the ATM, and my immediate thought was to put my hand up, and I pushed him. And he basically screamed and pushed a trash can over and then flipped out and left. And what happened essentially here is I saw in my peripheral vision, I saw somebody a little bit too close. And before I could even logically think about what was going on whatsoever, my hand went up and I pushed the guy. It could have been an old lady, I didn't even think about it. And the reason why I didn't think about it is because it was being processed by my subconscious mind. And your subconscious mind processes threats, because threats can happen very, very, very quickly. And it also processes body language and safety and attraction and sexual attraction. And so this is all happening through your subconscious mind. And whenever a woman sees you walk by in the corner of her eye, she's going to sort of have this pattern somewhere in her subconscious mind that says, when you see this sort of movement in this sort of pattern in the corner of your eye, that means there's an attractive person over there. And what happens is women start looking at you. So when I go over the walking thing, one of the biggest and most amazing things that I've seen that sort of happened since I've been walking this way is women start to stare at me a whole lot more. I got a lot more attention from women. And I got a lot more eye contact, a lot more smiles, a lot more coy sort of like turn away and look back and look away again, then women approaching me and talking to me and asking me about stuff randomly, sort of giving me an approach invitation to say, hey, come talk to me. And that happened a lot more once I started getting this walk down and when I got the dominant body language down, because it projects confidence, and since you're walking, it's projecting confidence past a lot of people. I taught this walk, the specific way that I walk, to the ad director for Axe body spray, and it's the guy who makes all the ads for Axe, the really funny ones. And he thinks them all up, and then he builds them, and then he produces them, and they do really well. And he has to study a lot of attraction stuff in order to understand this. And I coached him for a long time and helped him sort of develop a lot of the sort of subtleties of the brand, sort of the ads in the brand. And one of the things that I did is I sort of taught him how to walk with confidence, how to walk with power. And when he did it, he said he would walk down the street, and it was just unbelievable the kind of responses he would get from women that he never got before. I mean, he's skinny guy, glasses, curly hair, Swedish, just kind of like he looks completely harmless. But when he started walking this way, he instantly got a massive amount of attraction from women. So keep this in mind and definitely take notes here. So it is the most obvious and interpreted form of body language for women. And submissive walking, just to kind of give you an idea of what it looks like, submissive walking is your eyes are on the ground, you're taking short strides, your shoulders are scrunched up, and your chin is down. Now think back on any time you've walked in the past. Think back on whether or not you look down at the ground when you walk. Do you look down at the ground when you walk? Probably. Do you take short steps? You probably don't know what a long step is, but you probably are taking short steps, unless you've learned this stuff already. Are your shoulders scrunched up? Next time you're walking, pay attention to this, because it's something that most guys and people in general don't even realize that they're doing. I even still to this day will be sitting doing something or talking to somebody or on the computer, and I'll notice that all of a sudden snap out of it and realize my shoulders are up like an inch higher than they need to be. And I have to sort of put them back down again and remind myself and sit up straight. So, and is your chin down? And the answer to that's probably most likely too. Well, we put our chin down for a couple of reasons, by the way. We put our chin down and our shoulders up to protect ourselves, and we also do it to protect ourselves from physical attack, but also to protect ourselves from cold. So if you're really cold, it's really important that you warm your neck, like you wear a scarf or something, so that you can still keep your head up when you're walking, so you can still show dominant body language to these different women that you're walking by. And what most people do is they'll tuck their chin down, roll their shoulders forward, and take really quick steps whenever they're cold, because they're submitted by the cold. They're sort of submissive to the cold, and they want to get out of that sort of environment. It's uncomfortable, and so we all do this. And so what I'm asking you to do now is trying to, we have clothing to be able to handle this. Again, yeah, Michael says rain as well, and rain is definitely another reason why people will do that. They're trying to get away. They're trying to run away. It's sort of a fight or flight instinct that we have to get away from the elements, to save ourselves, to run away. It's a flight response. And so if you constantly have a flight response, then you can't possibly have a fight response. And so I've had a lot of really good responses, like I said, from switching over from a typical flight response to sort of having a new found fight response. And I've got a lot of really great things happen in my life, not just with women, but also with business especially, and getting a lot of attention outside of that. And so my friend used to say that the best way to do this, to sort of walk properly, is to walk like you have the biggest dick in the room. And I guess that's probably a good way of looking at it, but it's not very descriptive, so I'm going to go into descriptions now. A dominant body language and an attractive body language for women, from women toward men, as far as we're concerned, is that our eyes need to be at eye level. We need to have long strides. Shoulders need to be back and down. And our chin needs to be level and up. So let me talk a little bit about long strides for a second and tell you what that means. Whenever you step, and imagine that you are stepping, and if you were to walk and have it so that you were going heel to toe, which means that your heel is the first thing that touches the ground, and then your toe is the very last thing that leaves the ground, and you do that with both feet as you're walking, what you'd experience is a stride that's probably two to three times wider and longer than your common, normal, everyday stride, the one that you probably use as a default. You can take fewer steps to get where you're going and still get there in the same amount of time. And that's sort of the idea behind taking long strides. Now, most guys do not take long strides because they're afraid they're going to fall down. And I will warn you that when you start looking up off the ground and taking long strides at the same time and keeping your chin up, you are going to probably fall at some point. I remember when I first started doing this, I did it with like a new pair of shoes that I had that I wasn't used to. And I got these boots. I had a series of these like sort of short boots. They look like cowboy boots, but they're short. They're Italian style. And you know, I maybe had a 2.5 or 3 inch heel on the back. It's like a regular cowboy heel, and it's wooden. So when I was walking, people could hear you coming from a mile away. And when I first started walking in this, I wasn't really used to it yet, and so I'd walk too fast or I'd walk too wide, and you know, couldn't really get in my swing. And I rolled my ankle once, and then another time I stepped on I was in the middle of a crowded club, and my heel hit some water, and I slipped on this ground and fell and like grabbed a table on the way down and dumped all the drinks off. It was just a mess. It was terrible. But the truth is that I've gotten more positive responses from this than any negative ones, and that was as bad as it got right there. Whenever I fell down. You know, people laughed, and then they helped me up, and then they bought me a drink, and I hung out with them. You know, and it's like, oh my God, I can't believe that happened. You know, but I was after that happened though. I guess the real thing that happened in my mind is as I thought to myself, is this really what I've been afraid of my whole life? You know, falling down, and then you know, getting made fun of. I guess that Franklin says he said, yeah, okay, so he said he fell down. He's walking, he fell on the steps, and everyone was cool because of his reaction. And you know, his reaction wasn't sort of that of sort of weak and scared. And so what it really debunks is this idea that when we're younger, we have this concept that if we fall over and we slip or something, everyone's going to make fun of us. Because why? Well, it's because kids will make fun of you. You know, that's kind of how it is. But as you get older, that thing never leaves. It sort of stays there, and we fall into this thought process, this idea that we can't fall, we can't do something stupid, or everyone's going to make fun of us and we're going to look dumb. But that shows submission. So then we are afraid. We're afraid of something, and our lives are sort of driven by fear. And our bodies start to show that we're afraid of confrontation and we're afraid of ridicule. And instead, because the long strides is based on the lower part of your body, it's primarily having to do with a fear of ridicule. So the best way to do it, in my opinion, is to walk with long strides. And I mean, like, I can't give you a foot estimate, like how many feet your feet should be apart, because everyone's different. But I can say that if you feel like you are stepping a little bit too wider than you should be, just a little bit, then that's probably right. So step until you're stepping a little bit too wide, and you should get into this kind of like a keep on trucking sort of feeling, like you're walking in the video for Staying Alive or something, and you'll get this sort of rhythm down, and that's what creates the swagger for guys. That's what creates a confident swagger for men, and that's why a swagger is something that women are attracted to, because men are taking these wide, long strides, and they're forced to commit to every step, and they're not afraid to fall over. Again, if your eyes are at eye level, you're not afraid of looking, of having to look at the ground all the time, because you're not afraid you're going to fall over. You're also not afraid of looking at other people in the eyes and facing that confrontation, especially when it comes to women. It's really important to be able to walk and look at women in the eyes as you're walking. It's sort of like you approach every woman that gives you eye contact, you're approaching in your head. And it's the only way that I've found to fully get rid of the approach anxiety, is to look at women in the eyes and walk this exact way as you're walking down the street. And as women make eye contact with you, smile, but keep walking, unless you want to stop and talk to them. But you don't have to keep talking to them and stop and talk to everybody. But just make sure you lock eyes, and again, play the sort of eye contact game where you don't look down or you don't look away first. And just keep walking. And you'll walk straight through a city street, and you'll get tons of women looking at you, and by the time you get to where you're going, you're not really afraid to talk to any women, because you've already interacted with a bunch subconsciously. So I'll go ahead and move forward from here. Now we're going to go over to standing. Standing is probably the most misunderstood form of dominant body language in a bar. Most guys will overcompensate this. And most guys screw this up while they're talking to a woman, because most guys talk to women while they are standing. That makes sense, especially if you're meeting a woman for the first time and it's a stand-up bar, and you walk in and whatever, or you're in line at a grocery store or wherever you are. So, sorry, take a swig there. So you want to also, I'm just going to start basically straight into how to stand. And the thing a lot of people get wrong, I think right off the bat, one of the biggest indicators of weak and submissive body language or submissive personality is having your feet turned inward, or sort of what's called pigeon-toed, where your feet are turned slightly in toward each other. The reason why this is because you're not opening your legs sexually when you're talking. And if you have closed legs sexually, that usually means that in bed you're submissive. And if in bed you're submissive, you're not going to be able to be dominant in bed, which means you're going to attract women who are dominant in bed, or at least afraid to say they want a dominant guy in bed. So you want to make sure that your feet are open outward, just slightly, not fully, not like maybe I would say if you have your feet totally parallel to each other, facing forward, if you turn them out maybe about 1 inch each, and that's all you need when you're standing. Just enough to where you take up a little bit more space. Your feet should be about shoulder width apart, if not a tiny bit more than shoulder width apart. Not more than that though. You get too wide and it's a little bit overcompensation. You also get too short when you get too wide. And a lot of guys, what they'll do is when they're standing and they start to make their feet wider, they cross their arms at the same time because they want to protect themselves, because they're afraid that now that they're being dominant and showing dominant body language, that someone's going to attack them. So that's really, really crucial. The biggest signs of a weak man who's pretending to be confident is a guy who's showing all the signs of dominant body language, feet turned outward, shoulders back and down, things like that, except he's crossing his arms or putting a drink in front of his chest. So I'll kind of go into that now. Your shoulders have to be back and down, just like I said before. You should feel kind of a pull on your neck, a slight pull on your neck whenever your shoulders are all the way down. If you don't feel that pull, your shoulders probably aren't all the way down. So make sure you feel that pull just a little bit. You don't want to do it too much, though. A good shoulder stretch would be nice. Good nice neck stretch there. But you want to make sure that you feel that pull a little bit, and then you want to pull them back just a tiny bit. So when you pull them straight down all the way, pull them back until you feel that your shoulders are sort of not the most forward part of your body. At that point, you've got a pretty solid sort of a soldier stance, and that's a really attractive stance. And that's one of the reasons why a lot of women are attracted to sort of men in uniforms, because they've been trained to stand a certain way and with a certain kind of posture, and that posture is dominant body language posture. And we don't think about that as a culture, but that really is what it is. It's part of that process. So I'm going to continue here. We're already an hour into this, so I want to go ahead and speed up maybe a little bit. Do not drink guard. That means take your drink and put it in front of your chest while you're talking or standing there. Do not cross your arms unless you're freezing. And do not lean toward or lean over to talk to people. This is very crucial. If you're showing dominant body language but you're leaning over a bunch, it's going to be an incongruence, because your body language is showing that you're dominant, but since you're leaning forward, you're appeasing and appealing to everybody around you, which means that you're probably not dominant. So you're going to throw a lot of weird triggers and weird switches for women. They're not going to feel comfortable. So you want to make sure that you have no drink guarding, which means your drink is not in front of your chest. It's down by your side. You want to make sure your arms are not crossed. If you can keep from putting them in your pocket, that's good as well. Don't do that. But if you have to put them in your pockets, that's okay. Just don't roll your shoulders forward whenever you do it. And my typical response is to either touch them with your hands or to use them to sort of motion as you're talking. Point to things, sort of use hand gestures, things like that. And of course, don't lean toward them when you're talking and then lean back. That's called pecking as well. And that's sort of a big no-no for negative and positive body language. But again, for dominant as well. So again, your weight, I didn't go into this yet actually, so I can't say again, but your weight of your body should kind of be more on your heels than on your toes. If your weight is on your toes, and you don't know this, but if you think about it, you're standing up and your weight is on your toes. It's on your toes because you're ready to spring into action to run away. We do this automatically when we're in a fear position or we're in a heightened awareness position. If you're comfortable and confident and dominant in a position or any place, you're not going to need to be on your toes, because you're not going to feel like you're going to be attacked or you need to spring into action because you're going to be comfortable. So what you want to do is keep your weight slightly on your heels more than on your toes. It feels really weird at first, and you're going to have to bend your knees just a little bit probably, and just to kind of get used to it. But keep your weight a little bit more on your heels, and you'll be standing up, erect and sort of back a little bit. If your head is like way too back and you're leaning your head backward, then that's an overcompensation too, and that's not good. It looks like you're afraid you're going to get punched in the face. Don't do that. The proper way to stand up straight, by the way, is to imagine that there's sort of a hook on the top of your head, like a little loop on the top of your head, and there's a rope there, and the rope is pulling you upward from your head up. and that's making your body straight. It should sort of expand your entire body at once, and it should be on the crown of your head, sort of the top back part of your head, sort of where all the male pattern baldness is. And that area is where the sort of, you should pull it from that area. That should be the uppermost part of your head. It should be the sort of uppermost part of your body. It should be the top back of your head. And that's how you know that your head is up in the right position. And your weight should be slightly backward on your heels. So if your weight is sort of in an asymmetric position, meaning more on one leg than the other, like you're leaning toward your right side and your left leg has very little weight on it, then make sure it's you're leaning on your back foot, which means you're leaning on the foot that's farthest away from the person you're talking to. This is a negative body language thing, more so than a dominant body language thing, because you don't want to lean toward them on your weight with your weight on the front foot until you've already built rapport. But as far as dominant body language goes, if you're going to have a default, your default should be to lean on the foot farther away from them and lean on your heel a little bit on that foot. That's sort of the bottom half of your body and how you handle that. So another tip for standing at the bar, this is a really good one, is that everybody's tendency when someone brushes up against them or stands near them in a bar is to move to give them more room. But if you can stand, when someone walks by you, stand your ground and you don't move, then you are going to have a massive amount of, first of all, you have a big realization, and that realization is that people are not going to treat you poorly for not moving out of the way. They're going to give you more respect for not moving out of the way. I know it sounds crazy, but it's true. So if you start to, if you move out of the way a whole bunch, if you see them coming, then move. If they don't have enough room, of course, and you see them coming, you can move out of the way. But if you don't see them coming and they sort of spring up on you, don't move. If they do have enough room to get by, then don't move. Let them go around you. Let them walk around you. And that's what you want to do. Start to take control and take up your space. And this is a crucial component to being sort of dominant. Say you're standing, you walk up to a bar, you sort of put your arms in the bar and you're waiting for the bartender to come give you a drink. And the guy next to you starts to lean into you a little bit while he's talking to a girl. He's sort of backs into you a little bit and stands there. Well, you need to stand like a goddamn rock. I mean, you need to be like a pillar. And when he hits you, he needs to go, oh shit, sorry. Turn around and say sorry. If you move out of the way, he's not going to say sorry. But the goal is not to get him to say sorry in the first place. It's just that you're not going to get that kind of respect. So what you want to do is you want to stand there. Don't look at him. Don't worry about it. Sometimes I would actually lean into guys when they would come in and sort of post up on the bar right next to me. I'd actually lean toward them a little bit, and then they'd move out of the way. And then I had more space in the bar, and I'd take up that space. When I plant myself down, I would put myself there, and that was my spot because I deserve that spot. Guys who sort of use dominant body language, who feel dominant as men, take up the space that they're in, but they don't take up more space than that. And that's sort of a really common and powerful concept for dominant body language. Take up the space that you're in, but not more than that. But definitely take up the space that you're in. It's your space. You are there. You deserve that space. Someone else does not deserve it more than you. You deserve it. So that same kind of concept will come into play with women. If you're with a woman and you someone else wants this woman and you don't have sort of the utmost power and dominance in the situation, then you are going to automatically think, well, I want this person, but they might deserve this person more than me. But no, don't think that. You deserve the hottest woman. You deserve that space you're standing in. You deserve good drinks. You deserve good service. You deserve respect. You deserve everything you want. And so you have to stand up for it. And part of that fear of confrontation bleeds into your body language, and that shows submission. So you want to make sure that you're not afraid to confront to get what you want and get what you need. I've had to fight guys for women a lot in bars, a whole lot in bars. Not physically fight them, but we'd have like a dominant body language off, like an alpha off. And I've had guys that have beat me out on that, where they just knew what they were doing more than I did, especially in the very beginning. And I've had a lot of guys lose that to me. And I'm a small guy, and I just know what I'm doing when it comes to this. And people give me a lot of respect for it. And women like me a lot more for it. Anytime you're hitting on a girl, I've had guys lie to me. I've had guys come up to me and say, hey, it's my girlfriend. And I'd be like, really, what's your name? But my old reaction would have been like, oh man, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to do that. I'm not trying to be a dick, blah, blah. I would just apologize profusely and then leave. And then, leave her alone. And then he'd walk up and he'd hang out with her. But the truth is that that's usually not the case. Usually guys who come up to you in a bar and say, hey, it's my girlfriend, usually they're just trying to be dicks and they want you to leave so they can hit on her. Like I said last time in the last webinar, I had a guy one time right in my ear screaming at me, like just calling me names, saying he's going to kick my ass, saying that was his date that I was talking to, and I was in seduction, so I didn't flinch at all. And he did it for about, I don't know how long it really was, maybe about 1.5 minutes, 3 minutes, and then felt like forever. And I didn't give him any attention whatsoever. I just kind of stayed there and held my focus with her and didn't lean away whatsoever, didn't lean away from him, didn't give him any kind of space or any kind of submission whatsoever. And he backed off and left, And guys will do this. Whenever you start to take it to the next level and you start to really attract really gorgeous women, you're going to be competing with a lot of loud douchebags who are really insecure for these women. And you've got to be able to sort of out-alpha them, or sort of be more dominant than they are. And it's not a matter of like making fun of them or anything, nothing negative. It's just a matter of saying, look, this is my space. So, if we need to go outside, we need to go outside. If you need to go outside and fight somebody for your space, sometimes you got to do that. I've had a guy before want to fight me in a bar, and I said, you know what, let's go outside. I'll fight you right now. So he went outside, and as soon as he walked outside, I just walked to the bouncer and said, don't let that guy back in. He's trying to fight everybody. The bouncer went outside and told him to leave, and I got to stay inside and keep talking to the girl that he was talking to, which is really funny. But, I'm just smarter than him. That's just kind of how it is. But I'm definitely not going to back down when it comes to that sort of thing. And I'm, if it's something that I really care about, my girlfriend especially, not with girls that I'm not dating, but with my girlfriend especially, I'm going to fight for that. For her, if it comes down to it, and I might get my ass beat, but I'm going to do it anyway. I'm going to fight anyway, because that's kind of what I have to do. And so keep that in mind. You have to be okay with fighting every once in a while. It's not physically fighting people, but at least being confronting people and saying, "Hey, that's my seat," or "Get up, dude, get out of here. This is my seat. This is my girlfriend. This is so and so." Get your own beer. Things like this. You can't be walked all over. And the best way to do this is to not hesitate when you do it. Just walk straight up and say it as if you said it 1,000,000 times. And my friend, one of my really good friends here in town, his name's James. He's sort of a natural with women. He's a really, really good-looking guy as well. And he started dating this really, really good-looking girl. And of course, he came to me a bunch in the beginning for sort of pointers. But and he needs to know a lot of really cool stuff that I know, and I think everybody needs to know this. And I've had a lot of male models as clients because they don't really understand how to compete with other guys as easily and what they do when they open their mouths. But he told me that when he first started dating her, he'd come back and there'd be a guy every time he went to the bathroom. He'd come back, there'd be a guy sitting in his seat hitting on his girlfriend every single time. And he said his reaction every time was the same. He said he'd walk up and he'd look at the guy and he'd just take his thumb and point backward and go, "Get out." And the guy would go, "Oh, is this your seat?" Blah blah. And he'd go, "Nope, just don't talk, just get up." And the guy would just get up and leave. It happened every single time. So you have to be willing to go that far and to sort of stake your ground. Claim your stake here. This is yours. This is your stuff. This is your, you deserve it. So I'll get off my soapbox here, but it's really crucial that we get that across here, and that's very crystal clear. So the next is sitting. So sitting is probably it's the most common in a social environment, sort of a relaxed social setting. The most common way that women will read body language, and it's also one of the most common ways to tell group dynamics, is the way that someone sits. So I'm going to go into that now. It's one of the hardest positions to be dominant in as well. A lot of guys can't pull this off. So one of the biggest components to being dominant while seated are a straight back, having a really straight back, and a high head. Keeping your head up, and I don't mean being high. I mean keeping your head up. But having a straight back is really crucial as well. This is really important because a lot of guys will slouch over whenever they are sitting down. They just get tired. Their muscles are weak. Their core muscles especially are weak. If you have really weak core muscles and it's really hard for you to sit up straight, I highly suggest taking some kind of Pilates class or something, or some kind of core class to strengthen your core, because it will straighten and it'll immediately get better results for you with women. Women will see you, and it handles an area of your body language that most guys do not handle. So a lot of guys try to get big and bulky because they're trying to overcompensate their dominance. But if you can get your body language straight in a proper way, in the smart way, you can sort of build up the muscles and the strength to be able to show this sort of dominant, powerful body language all the time. Again, having your head high all the time as well will sort of hurt your lower neck sometimes, because it's a muscle that a lot of people try to relax when they're chilling out, when they put their head to the side, forward and backward as well. They sort of relax their neck. Your legs should be about shoulder width apart when you're sitting. Maybe a little bit more than that. You can actually go almost as far as 1.5 your shoulder width apart. But at least I would say shoulder width apart. You don't want to keep them too close. Your knees should not be so close that they're the same width as your hips. That's not right. If you're doing that, you're sitting in way too a submissive position for body language. You want to keep your legs open, out, expressed, wide as well. Again, this is a very sexual concept. The idea that that you are opening your legs basically in this conversation, literally opening your legs and taking up space so that you it's kind of like saying that you have such a big dick that you need to open your legs so that you can get some air in there. But that's not the direct translation, obviously. But it does sort of come across as this really powerful and dominant quality. So keep that in mind. You also want to slow down your movements. And this is a really crucial concept. If you slow down your movements, your hand movements, your eye movements, your head movements, you'll also slow down your speech. So if you do this while you're sitting down, then you'll be sort of calm, collected. You'll be able to lean back and stay back. And you won't get too close. It won't be as tempting for you to lean forward when you're talking. Let me see. Okay, yeah, got a statement. Let me see what that was. I think it was Scott said. I think a lot of guys feel like he's kind of talking about this concept of keeping your legs closer together. He said a lot of guys he thinks that are sort of protecting their groin in that same area, like, oh, I got to protect myself. And yeah, I think you're probably right about that too. It's not just about taking up space, but it's all about protection. But again, you have to be open to attack. One of the big things I realize is that if you're open to attack, people don't attack you. But if you're closed off and you're protective, people attack you. That's just how it is. I learned that in a lot of different ways in different areas of my life. It's sort of like people are just afraid to attack somebody who's dominant because they're afraid of the repercussions for that. And it's a really scary thing to go up against somebody who's got very powerful dominant body language. So you want to slow down your movements, which will slow down your brain actually, and will also slow down your speech pattern. If you have a problem with speaking too quickly, I speak very quickly. I lived in New York for a while, and everybody speaks pretty fast there, and everyone goes pretty fast there. So I try to stay in a position of where I'm really keeping my movements slower so that I slow down my body. It also keeps my brain clear and it helps me focus, but it also will keep me from leaning forward and sort of falling down in this neediness and giving this neediness in my body language and dropping my head. One of the things that people do is they drop their heads a lot when they're sitting. If someone sits down next to you, don't move or make yourself smaller in any kind of way unless they need space to sit down. That's important. Do not move unless they need space. And look over and go, would I need space if I were them? And if the answer is nope, then don't move. Take up as much space as you want. But if they need space to sit down, don't be a jerk. That's overcompensation. A lot of guys get into, I'm not sure if you guys know about this, but pickup arts is a pretty popular thing for a lot of guys. They start studying how to pick up women. And a lot of the guys who teach pickup, and I was one of the guys who definitely has taught that in the past, they teach a lot of overcompensation techniques, and it just makes guys look really weird. You can tell that you're in a group where there's a pickup artist because they'll be like laying down when they're sitting, like taking up 4 seats and refusing to move, and it's just like, come on, dude. And then they're also not confident in any kind of way. They're not even enjoying the seats. They're just kind of sitting back and being quiet, and they're looking around and making sure that everyone likes them, and that doesn't really work. So I want to give you what works. There's a limit as to how much space you can take up, but take up as much space as you need. At least the space where your shoulders are totally back and down, that space, and if your elbows go out a little bit, that's your space. That's how much space you can take up with the rest of your body too. So if you want to use that space with your legs, you can take up that space with your legs as well, and so on and so forth. So definitely keep that in mind and keep your shoulders down. If someone comes and sits next to you, don't squeeze your shoulders up. Don't turn. Don't make your legs smaller. If someone's legs touches yours, one of their legs touches yours, then just leave it there. Let it touch. Don't worry about it. Get used to it, because if you're going to be sort of fighting this always and trying to get away from it sort of in a homophobic kind of way, then you're going to be playing a more submissive role, ironically, and women are going to find that less attractive. So we had a question about crossing your legs. What about crossing your legs? Well, crossing your legs is sort of, it's funny I say this, but crossing your legs is kind of actually a little bit more advanced. Because if you want to cross your legs, you have to be able to come across as dominant while your legs are crossed. So your legs are crossed. When your legs are crossed, you automatically come across as more feminine whenever you do that. So if you have a lot of problems with sort of women thinking that you're gay, because for whatever reason, I don't know why you would have that problem, but I used to have that problem when I first started doing this as well, because I would talk a whole lot and I would touch a whole lot, and I was really playful in the beginning, so women thought I was gay. It makes sense. And so I wouldn't really cross my legs as much then because I didn't want to sort of reinforce that stereotype. But if you're going to do it, make sure that you have some sort of balance going on with your body. One thing that I would do is if I'm going to cross my legs, I'll sort of lean over to one side and make sure that I have sort of I won't make a really silly joke or anything, or be a really silly person whenever I have my legs crossed. When I have my legs crossed, I get more serious. And whenever I uncross my legs, then I can be more fun and playful. So keep that in mind. If you're going to be crossing your legs, you have to have more of a dominant personality. Otherwise, eye contact has to be really solid. You have to be very straightforward with your sexuality to them. Like if you think that they're very attractive or hot, you got to tell them. And you have to be very calm and collected while you do it. So if you're going to cross your legs, and I do this often, just make sure also that you don't just cross one leg over the other and not switch it up every once in a while. So if you have a hard time sitting with one leg over the other, so you sort of tend to favor one side, then it'll throw your posture off. So you'll start to overdevelop one group of muscles and the other one will get really weak. And then when you walk, you'll walk funny and you won't be able to walk in an attractive, dominant kind of way. So keep that in mind. That's important to note. So that's everything from sitting, standing, and walking. How to sit, how to stand, how to walk. And that is essentially the tail end here of my 5-week body language mastery course for dominant body language. We've got a lot of questions. I'm not going to be able to get to that many of them, but if you do have them, go ahead and toss them in now. I'm going to go through and look at some of them and answer them one at a time, probably the most recent ones first. So if you do have a question about what we covered today, then please go ahead and post that now. We're going to go over some Q&A and make that happen. And then I will go over a little bit more about next week. People liking it, which is good. Let me go here again. Next week, again, that's it for Dominant Body Language this week. Next week, we are going to go over a mystery topic. I'm not going to tell you what it is, like I said this week, but I will tell you that it has to do with body language, of course. It has to do with sexuality. It has to do with power, and it has to do with intimate conversation. When to use this during intimate conversation. It's not something that I've covered so far in any kind of detail. I may have mentioned it a couple times, but not very much. And I'm going to go over sort of the 6th pillar of dominant body language. We are running low on time here. If anyone else has any last-minute questions, go ahead and toss those on right now, and I will get to you. Otherwise, I will end this, so let me know. Let me know what you got here. Anybody? I'll wait a second to let people finish writing what they want to write. Also, if you want to, you can raise your hand. Actually, I'd love to talk to people. If they have any questions, you can actually raise your hand and I'll unmute you and talk to you. I know that Nick can't do that because I believe he's at work every Wednesday this time. Building, I don't know what he does. He makes dildos or something, which is good. Someone needs to do that, for people of the world. But yeah, go ahead and raise your hand if you want to talk, or post a question if you have a question. And then, okay, I got a couple more here, so I'll go ahead and answer those. Okay, so we got a question here. It says, is dominant body language similar to putting on a hat? Okay, so if you missed last week's webinar, putting on a hat is sort of the psychological space of sort of how we create frames for ourselves. When we meet women, they sort of put on a certain hat around us. They can put on the prude, sort of quiet, reserved hat, or the crazy party wild girl hat, or whatever you want. But really, women put on those hats because we ask them to subconsciously, and that's really what's going on there. So what we want to do is we want to make sure we put on the proper hat at the proper time to elicit the proper response from women and sort of help them to put on the hats that they want to put on. Usually those hats are, I'm open to trying new things. I'm into threesomes, and I can swallow an entire banana whole. that kind of hat would be nice. So dominant body language is similar to putting on a hat in that you can actually just sort of become this part of your personality. Let it come out, as so to speak. Instead of trying to fake it to people outside, you're going to be showing. It's more that you would fake it to yourself more than anything if you don't feel comfortable with it. And by the way, when I say fake it, I don't really mean that you're faking anything. What I mean is that it's not going to feel natural for you. So you're going to feel like you're faking it. So what you're going to be doing here is you're going to put on a hat. And what I used to do is I used to put on the hat of somebody that I could think of, like some man that I knew. I had a lot of different characters that would show me this sort of dominant body language. I had a weird sort of style, though. If you watch The Doors, it's a movie with Val Kilmer. He's playing Jim Morrison. The Doors is one of the that main character, Jim Morrison's character in that movie, is sort of someone that I've modeled a lot for the way that I walk and such, for sexuality, but not for dominance. For sexual dominance, but not for power, in other words. And then for power, I've modeled a few other people. I've looked at, some people are real, some people are fake. I've actually modeled cartoon characters, actually. There's a cartoon, an anime character from a show called Cowboy Bebop, and his name's Spike. And he's a sort of a guy who does martial arts and stuff, and he's got like the perfect amount of serious and joking and sort of my frame. It sort of looks like me, and he's got this same kind of build as me, but he's a really dominant guy. And so I figured that I'd model him. So you want to find somebody who's considered to be pretty dominant, that has your same kind of frame and body type, and you want to model them. And when you put on that hat, you really just think what they would do in this situation. And there are a lot of really dominant characters, and we can actually keep a running list if you guys would like of dominant characters from TV or movies or books, whatever. It doesn't really matter. Or people in real life, people who are fictional. People from history who are alive or dead, whatever. And we can sort of keep this running list if you guys would like that. And just sort of over time. We do have a members area. If you haven't logged into the members area, we've got some new things unveiling about it here pretty soon. So you can check it and check that out. And you can actually have conversations with me in there. So that's good. You can actually post a question and things like that inside that members area. As well. So you can go ahead and do that. If you want to keep the running list within there, we can do that. So we have one last question here, and that's all I have time for. It's from Franklin. He says, is there a mindset you try to keep in your head to remain dominant during banter? He says that he finds that a joyful state at times makes him too animated, and I totally get that. So if you're during banter and during the sort of attraction stage, you're going to be keeping a sort of lighthearted feeling, a lighthearted personality, but you also have to keep this dominant body language as well. Otherwise, you don't really get to you sort of come across as submissive, and that's when women think that you're gay. So you don't want to do that. So instead of sort of coming across like you are sort of weak in that sense, let me make sure I'm still on here. Yeah, we're good. Okay. Instead of risking coming across like you're weak, you want to make sure that you keep your sort of feet that same width apart as well, and that you sort of shift from foot to foot from time to time. You want to be able to move your weight from one foot to another, but not in a rocking fashion. Like you don't want to rock from one foot to another often, like left, right, left, right. You look kind of strange if you do that. Instead, looks like okay, looks like my audio went out there for a second to some people. So I'll kind of repeat what I just said there. So instead of leaning forward and leaning back and sort of rocking from left to right on the on your feet whenever you're talking to women, you're going to be essentially squaring off, but then very slowly and over time shifting which foot you put your weight on, and that will sort of keep the negative positive body language flowing. And again, Franklin, you're right. I see another question you got there, a statement about the sort of ebb and flow of body language, and then also you'll be able to essentially keep this dominant body language traits as well. But again, all the notes that I gave you for the standing section here still stand for banter. Don't cross your arms. You'll be role playing a little bit more, but make sure your shoulders are backing down. That's so crucial. It's so important that your shoulders are backing down. If they're not backing down and you sort of shrunk them up a little bit, you'll come across as extremely submissive, and you do not want to come across as submissive whenever you're talking to women, especially whenever you're bantering. So keep that in mind. Guys, it's been very awesome. I had a great time with this course. 5-week body language mastery course was a great success here, and I really got to talk about some very advanced and very awesome concepts. I'm really happy that this is the 5th one here, and I'm very happy to be able to show you guys a bonus webinar next Wednesday. It'll be at the same time, and it's going to be absolutely free. I mean, you've already bought your seats for this thing, so I'm going to tack it on as a bonus just to sort of push it over the edge here to give you a little bit of extra training and stuff. And you guys have been really cool, so I'm totally happy doing that for you. Can't wait to reveal those concepts. It's going to be a little bit shorter than these. It'll be the same kind of graphical interface, though, with the same really cool jumping from topic to topic concept. And I really appreciate everyone's participation and showing up and everything. So I'll see you next week around the same time, and I'll send out an email to everybody just to remind you that that's going on then, and we'll continue. Thanks a whole lot, guys, and take care, and keep reading The Tao of Badass. If you haven't read it all yet, definitely read it. If you have read it, you may want to go back and start to reference it a couple times now and get back into it just to make sure you're still on top of everything. And I do have a couple other courses. I have a hacking attraction course, which is a DVD training course. It's an sort of boot camp in a box. And then I have the membership area, the Advanced Coaches Prep course, which is a video every couple of days for me, training and teaching you some really awesome concepts, about 7 to 12-minute videos. So check those out as well. Right now, there's I think you can only get those if we offer those to you. So you have to wait till we offer those to you. But wait for that offer, and when you see it, jump on it, because we don't offer them very often. And then I am doing some in-person boot camps coming up here. I think in the next couple of months we'll have a couple going on. So if you do want to jump on one of those, shoot me an email. The email is joshua@thedaoofbadass.com, and I'll go ahead and actually type that in here so that everybody gets it down like that. If you do want to shoot me an email, feel free to go ahead and do that, and I'll be able to get back to you on that and give you a little more details about anything that you guys want to know about. Thanks again, and I will see you on the flip side, guys. Take care.